Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, I hope you're doing well. You're having a great day and you are ready for some Computer America. So today on the program, second part of the show, we have computer and technology news. Still putting those stories together, making sure that they are fresh. That is our excuse to kind of say that we're lazy and we do it at the last minute. But hey, they're going to be very, very relevant. So stick around for that. In the first part of the program, though, is as usual dedicated to a guest, but this guest is going to be a first time, and I'm really looking forward to talking about a service called BandLab. And if you haven't heard about them, this is going to be a great way to become familiar with with what it is that they do. And we're going to get broad strokes, we're going to get in depth, and hey, we're going to be talking about the idea of a social media a social media creation platform, because obviously a lot of people out there have, it's never been easier to make music, but at the same time, it's never been harder to get into the music industry because it's so, I don't want to use the word bloated, but when the barrier to entry reduces, that lets a lot more people in. And I'm not saying that it lets bad artists in or anything like that. It lets amazing artists be able to do this, kind of from the get-go. But to be able to stand out, to network, to build that following, build that audience, and of course, everything that goes into music production that isn't strictly music production. Hey, we're going to be talking about all different aspects of this. So before we get started though, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes. You'll find a link to our guest website, or if you'd like to check it out directly, bandlab.com, couldn't be simpler. And also at Computer America, you'll find articles, reviews, products, stories, past shows, future shows, podcasts, so much more. Please feel free to check out Computer America all the time. It's where we put all of our content. Find us on social media, blah, blah, blah. Let's go ahead and get started. So as I said before, BandLab joining us here today, and joining us is a product manager for BandLab, and that would be Mr. John Ivers. And of course, the first thing that wants to pop into my head is it's like, oh, we have Johnny Ives, but no, John Ivers. There we go. And John, thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Super, super honored to be a guest.
I
was gonna say, every time I go to an Apple store, somebody is like, "Is it like Johnny Ives, Johnny I?" And it's kind of I'm kind of proud of it. I can't take any credit, but
Well, hey, just say that, you worked on the audio on the iMac, and then you'd be in your wheelhouse. So I think a good place to start this interview is going to be a bit of a background on BandLab,
Sure.
of when did it get started and what is its mission, and then a bit of your background. How did you find yourself working with the company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So BandLab, I guess in its current form, has been around for, I would say, about 6 years. It started with this idea that came out of JamHub, and which is a way that you can sort of like plug into other people's devices and jam with them in your home without making any noise. You plug your guitar and your bass in. But then there was this big need for, what if you can do this digitally, right? Like, what if you can start projects with people, work on music collaboratively? And slowly BandLab sort of developed out of this idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so BandLab really, it's a platform for music creators. So from the ground up, we help musicians create music. We help people collaborate with each other. We help them as they publish or upload their work, manage it, share it, and sort of build their digital community. And we solve problems for all types of musicians, ranging from somebody who just like is really interested in learning how to make music and has no idea where to start and just has, XYZ phone,
Hmm.
right? To somebody who's using BandLab to master their music and, track how well their posts are doing across their community, right? And it sort of connects all these dots between, um,
So
yeah.
yeah, and actually, before I get into my line of questioning, what is your background?
Yeah, so my background is in audio engineering and music composition, actually. So I studied music composition in school. I have a master's in composition, and I started, working at BandLab as a sound designer originally because we need beats and sounds for all of our users to make music with.
Hmm.
But I had also been working with other app developers, such as Agile Partners. They pushed the first guitar tuner on iOS. So I had been working in the app realm as a sound designer for a while when I came to BandLab. And yeah, just sort of progressed from there, giving a lot of feedback on the product as a musician. And then eventually now I'm sort of I'm focusing solely on how musicians are creating music in BandLab, which is super exciting. It's been a long journey.
So you went from someone who was just an avid user to, having, hey, a lot more say in, kind of how it operates and where it develops, which is good. You want people who are passionate about the project to be more directly involved with it. So I'm really happy
Exactly. Yeah.
that's how you got your start. Okay, so the question I had before that though was this idea that musicians want to connect to each other over the internet.
Hmm.
I'm not a musician. A former host of Computer America, Greg Crossman. He's a classically trained pianist, and he's been doing music for his whole life. And so connecting with other artists isn't something that I'm really familiar with. So talk about why the internet when it comes to this, because I thought that's what, kind of going downtown and meeting other musicians there or starting a band locally. What has the internet done for musicians who want to collaborate?
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to start one step back with this question
Sure.
and say that one of the key technical concerns we had at BandLab was being cross platform, right? So you can open BandLab on an iPhone, an Android phone, or any computer with a web browser. And because, we're guaranteed feature parity here, so everything is in the box, you can make music with our system on any device, that opens up a whole world of collaborative possibilities. In a similar way that, a Google document is running software in Chrome that everybody can have access to, we can do this for music, right? And that makes it possible to collaborate and yeah, and also there's just, I think in the traditional landscape of music creation technology, it's
Hmm.
pretty bloated and it's complicated, and there's these huge old software, applications running plugins, and it's almost impossible to find the setup that just works with other people. And it's, propeller head is certain companies have tried but and now is really the time to also take advantage of, like, cloud storage is available and usable, and we can scale it to this new degree that these other applications can't. And so that really, um and then we can version control, right? And it solves a lot of these, like, um problems that, yeah, people are
So,
having, like,
so you
just trying to make
saw,
music. Yeah.
yeah. So you saw the real barrier to entry wasn't, well, at least one of the barriers to entry was just the complexity that, and we see it in other tech industries as well. Like, let's say, you want to start a restaurant, but of course, if you have a restaurant, you need to have an online presence. You need to, do Google Ads and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But hey, restaurant owners, they don't want to run a web. They don't want to be a webmaster. They don't want to do advertising. They don't want to be
Yeah.
in marketing. They just want to run their restaurant. So you saw the same thing here with music production, where, not everyone wanted to become the ultimate tech music master. They just want
Yes.
something that works.
Yeah, and even if you're in a traditional band, um, having being able to be like, "Hey, man, I just did this riff. I think it's really great," and add it to a project, and your friend can listen to it, um, and give you feedback and chat about it in the app before your next rehearsal, right?
Hmm.
And then, you can create a band page and release it together. So it's from that initial social interaction and creation to, like, hey, we made something together.
So let's talk about how obviously BandLab is different than other services. The first one that of course comes to mind is SoundCloud, something like that, where it's one profile. You release music, and of course people can react to it, share it, listen to it, that kind of thing. There's an element of social media to it. Obviously, it's kind of more of a repository for a person's collective works. Where do you really feel that BandLab really separates? Is it that collaborative element? Is it that you integrate with other social media? How do you separate yourself from others in your field?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. So it is possible to use BandLab just like SoundCloud. You could, upload your tracks and just list them on your profile. And, we found that that's not a great way for musicians to actually engage with their community or
Hmm.
their listeners. It's not so. Um, what we can allow creators to do is, interact more directly with their actual audience. So, say you want to share a track with your audience, and they can open it up and remix it and play with it and see how you made it, right? Or you want to release an album and you want to customize the page and monetize it, right? We offer these things. Or tracking a post or tipping other people. And we have this idea of communities or finding collaborators in person around you.
Hmm.
So there's the feature set is I think a little more broad, and it's really focused on, like, yeah, how people are creating together and building those creative communities. Whereas I think because services like SoundCloud lack some of the tools that to actually make music and
Hmm.
use the cloud collaboration tools, we kind of, yeah, we're focusing on that part of the market.
So talk about you've mentioned a couple times now the music creation tools. We've had other companies here on the show. Everyone from Adobe to Samsung or
Sure.
Adobe, Yamaha, people like that. And when it comes to making music, you can get really in depth. You can
Hmm.
really have these like GarageBand style creation tools and that kind of thing. What do you offer? Because obviously, if it works on any browser, on any smartphone, you have apps for that kind of thing. Would you say it's I don't want to say like the bare essentials, but it's enough to get people introduced to the idea on how to make their own music together, or how functional is your music creation software?
Yeah. So that's also a great question, because I guess one of our product principles that I think of at BandLab is that everything should be immediately understandable. So I'm sliding through an effects preset, it makes my voice sound different, but we also don't want to limit the creative potential. So there, for example, there's a little icon to edit all 200 of our presets and set all of the internal settings, right? So from this idea, we try to build an app in a way that can take a person and turn them from somebody who doesn't know how to create music into a creator, right? So you could start with one feature, which would be the looper, which allows you to hit different icons, and we do pitch detect. We repitch and time stretch it so it sounds good, and no matter what you do, like, you're making a cool beat. But then we allow users to import those same loops maybe on the web browser and slice them up and change the pitch in really complicated ways and add automation and repitch it in real time. These types of things are, you know we you can do both of them, right? And of course, yeah, where most of our users are on the more entry side of that.
Hmm.
They're still learning how to produce music, and but people are making really great tracks in BandLab. And then once they graduate to, say, something like, you get a Pro Tools studio, like, use the Pro Tools studio.
Hmm.
We have 10,000 loops that are free to use for anybody. And we have a desktop client where you can just drag those into Pro Tools, keep publishing your track with BandLab. It's we want to play nice with everyone on their journey.
It's really one of those things that technology has really afforded people in the past 15, 20 years, where of course you can buy something like the entire Adobe suite, and that's like $1,000.
Hmm.
And way at the beginning of the show, I was talking about barriers to entry, and I think this is one of those things that definitely reduces that. Because like you said, people are just getting into starting for the first time, and they want to see what is it like, and they probably don't need every single tool that a professional in Hollywood or wherever, Nashville, wherever music is made,
Hmm.
but they need enough knobs to turn to kind of get a feel for what it is that you do. And I got to say that your website, highly encourage everyone to go check that out, because like right here, this virtual instrument playground where you can kind of, I'm assuming, kind of play around with these things, make these
Yeah.
tracks yourself. And I'm surprised that I didn't have to download anything. It's just embedded right there in your website.
Yes, we actually, from a technological standpoint, this idea of making a web app and an audio app that works on iOS and Android is it's pretty crazy if you think about it. I mean, if I'm looking at it internally, but we really try and just make it work seamlessly using WebAssembly or running like native code in the browser to handle audio. We're finding like all sorts of different ways that we can use this one audio engine so that we can do things like put a guitar pedal in a website.
Hmm. When did all this start? By the way, when was this whole project launched?
Yeah. um it's that's a tricky question because it's existed in some way for probably 7 years or more, but like I said, it came from this concept of Jam Hub and online collaboration. But the current CEO Meng Kwok really like has turned it into this broad, global, like cross-platform, collaborative platform, really. And in that way, it's existed for about 6 years. The web platform has been working. We've added many features. I think it would look totally different if we went back 6 years and looked at the app.
It definitely looks very, very polished and very clean. And by the way, this is actually one of the questions that we have here. So this idea of a struggling artist, how are artists going to make
Mhm.
their money and that kind of thing, and that's one part of it. And we'll talk about how people can support themselves and the community through this app. But it's also, hey, you don't want to be a struggling artist company and figure out how to
Mhm.
keep the lights on while you're developing something like this and supporting thousands upon thousands of people.
Yeah.
How do you guys make your money? Because it says here limited advertising. Um, that's a very impressive feat for a service like this.
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. So and it's one we get a lot. It's like, how are you able to do this and not have any advertising and not charge me for anything? So like, how can I host 10 gigs of songs and not be paying you for it? But you can, in our business plan is really long term, but we're really acting as a startup right now in terms of how we operate, and we're
Mhm.
really focused on growth, right? So if we want the market, like you said, there's problems with how independent artists monetize themselves, right? There's problems with how musicians connect with other platforms. There's problems with this model for musicians where, okay, maybe I'm not making money off of streaming, but I'm going to make a bunch of money off of my concerts, and even like within current events, that's hugely problematized
Yeah.
right now. Right. And so BandLab, globally is imagining a more free way that musicians can manage their own careers and connect with each other. And yeah, like I said, from the ground up, we're also part of you know, a more global BandLab Technologies brand that we have some media, so magazines, NME magazine, Music Tech magazine. Our company builds guitars and guitar pedals like Teisco pedals, and we're relaunching Harmony Guitars, which is like an iconic American brand.
Hmm.
So, we're thinking really long term in terms of how all of these different businesses talk to each other and really amplify themselves. But right now, we want to learn how people are making music so we can serve them best in band labs, and that's where we can take risks and like, well, let's try vocal tuning. Let's try X, Y, and Z. Let's see what's working and adapt and learn.
Yeah, it's I think that a lot of industries suffer from that. They they've existed for decades and decades, and people realize that this is the best way to, let's say, produce music. But the best way to produce music is not the best way for someone new to start producing music.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I get really passionate about this. Like, I learned audio engineering like on a mixer, a physical
yeah.
mixer, and I'm happy letting that physical mixer go. And I think that people, creators, young creators, like, why are we making software that looks like physical hardware in the audio world still, right? It's like maybe there's a whole different way we think about um, what the creation tools are, because that generation of people who even visually understands like how complicated like patch cords and cables in a studio can be. Like it's there's always a place for that, right? But
Yeah.
it's I think that we don't need to make software that looks like that.
I'm sure that you've heard of a voice meter and voice meter banana. It's something that I first had to get into. Obviously doing what we do. We've over 29 years, something like that. Computer America has gone from a radio studio to home studio to something that is really comparable to a radio studio in a home setting. And
Hmm.
it really confused me the first time that using something like something like voice meter, there were knobs and dials that you could push up and down and that kind of thing. It was very someone who came strictly from, let's say, a not audio engineering side, very confusing. But I'm sure someone who, like you said, like yourself, who came from the physical side, would say, "Oh, look, here's everything virtually. This works just fine." Confusing, but now that I know how it works, the learning curve could have been better. And I guess that's what you're working on with BandLab is learning curve. It should be gentle for something like this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know I'm applying an equalizer to my voice. It sounds good, right? But
Hmm.
you know, next step is I can edit the Q value or like the cutoff frequency, and we still allow that, but it's just up front. You don't need to. You're going to learn it by ear, and then you're going to be like, oh, maybe it would sound better this way, and then naturally there's a story that occurs. I think that's what I want in a user experience.
So two parts here. What has the user reaction been for people who adopt it and people who use not just the hard, not just the hard, or I'm sorry, the software side of it, but also the community side of it. And then the second part to that is it totally just left my mind. So just answer the first part while I try to think of the second part again. But how has the reaction been to a service like this?
Yeah, it's we've had an unbelievable reaction. I think there's hundreds of thousands of tracks being made every day in BandLab, which is just on a numbers level. Right now we're making over 200,000. And there's I don't know what number I can officially say, but we have over
Mm,
12 million users, right? So the
very
platform
nice.
is really large, diverse community of people collaborating with each other. And we've had, we're learning about what they want and what they need. So you can see streaming is something we're experimenting with, and
Hmm.
people are using BandLab streaming more now. And then we've had so much good feedback for the mix editor, which is what we call our audio workstation. Just for people, so surprised about how good it sounds and like what kind of music they can just make right off the bat. There's definitely always naysayers along the way, especially people who, are coming from a more complicated audio workstation, and they come to BandLab and they're like, well, why can't I do this? And why can't I do this? And um, yeah, but that's, but I don't think that we're making, it's conscious that we're not making those same decisions.
Right.
So
And of course, because this is primarily software, it doesn't even have to be a never. It just has to be not right now.
yeah, exactly. Like right now we have, you can map knobs on your keyboard to change specific dials on audio settings in the website and like record all of them so they play back. And it's like a very, it's like this very complicated feature, but It's just in one of the icon menus, and if you move the MIDI keyboard and press the knob, all of us they're automatically mapped to each other, and you just have to play. So maybe trying to abstract away some of the complexity that's so important for what we're doing.
So one part of this that we haven't mentioned yet, and you can see it on the homepage there. If you go to the store, you obviously the app is available for download through the Android, through the Google Play Store and the iOS Store. But there's a hardware component to this, and it's something that I guess a lot of people would be, it's great to start on your phone and you have your instrument and you're good to go. But some of these hardware pieces, they look very simple. I've seen some hardware that can just be a billion knobs and all these different inputs and blah blah blah. Why have you decided to, if it's about getting people, kind of introduced and going at a certain rate, what did these hardware offerings kind of solve for you in those steps?
Yeah, right. So I think of this like ideal user interaction where somebody is just like, oh my gosh, I have an idea for a song. And they get their phone and they sing it and they record it in BandLab. And they're just like, I had no idea. Like, this sounds so great. Like, I'm so happy that I was able to do this. Right. So one of the big issues is like recording into your earbuds or the microphone on your, the built-in microphone on your phone. And we actually do a lot of things to try and improve that in app. But at the end of the day, you need some way to plug in a microphone to your phone and record yourself so, the input audio sounds good. And so that was, I'm actually in this video of that you're showing. Sorry, there's a video ad of me playing with the interface, and I was like, "Who is it? Oh, it's me." I got distracted there, but yeah, we're just trying to make a really simple interface where you can just plug and play. It works with any software actually. So if you have some other flow, that's fine, but it works really well with BandLab. And these are called BandLab links, and so we have analog and digital versions that you can plug in to use our app, plug in a microphone, plug in a guitar, keyboard, whatever you need.
So, and someone who is very, very, bad, let's just say bad with audio. The point of these is that if you do, you're still using your phone. This is not bypassing any of the app whatsoever. But instead of, let's say, the music being picked up, let's say your vocals being picked up by your phone's microphone, which can be, hey, it's condensed into the size of a phone. There's going to be some distortion. Instead, you use the simple device, plug it into your phone, plug your microphone into this device, either the analog or the digital, and then you can use a full, let's say a better microphone or even another instrument.
Yes, okay. Exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
you need it to sound good. It's true.
Yeah, and phones do a lot, but there's a reason that people don't record full blown songs on their phones. It's just that space actually does matter, form factor actually does matter. But
I think we'll get there. I think someday we will get there where we.
I'm not, and you obviously work on the audio side more than I do, but I thought one of the big limitations, and it's the same with like speakers, is just that the movement of air, you just need to be able to displace more air, and just a compact form factor can't do that.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's a lot of improvements to be had just on phone microphones and how we process those recordings in general, I guess, is where I'm thinking. But if you're making a podcast or you're trying to put something on the radio, you need the large diaphragm microphones. You need to catch the air.
But really, don't get me wrong. Every year we actually display out there at CES, and there was a time when we had to bring all these stands and all these microphones and all this huge stuff. Last time we were out there, we were able to record strictly just on our phone and using something actually that looks a lot like the digital that you have here. And we were able to walk around the show floor and just stick a little wand microphone in people's face, and that was amazing. It is getting better. It is getting better.
Yeah, it's super cool.
For sure. So with all this being said, and I know that before the show you talk about, you aren't too familiar with the hardware side of this whole thing, but at the same time, I think that even if you aren't, well, I'm sorry, even if you're just beginning to make music, affordable microphones are really, really doing well. In like the $0 to $100 range, those are starting to really,
Mm-hmm.
really do well. I'm sure instruments and digital interfaces and things like that are getting just as affordable. Talk about
Yeah.
the hardware and the software. Well, we'll talk about the hardware trends that you're seeing. Uh, and hey, I'm sure that you collect data on your users. I'm sure that people are uploading, kind of better quality over the years.
Yeah. I think that, the well, to answer, to start with the second half of that, basically, like, I'm always just amazed at what our users are making and how they're making it. And even, from using how good they can get something sounding using like their phone
Mm-hmm.
to, wow, this user must have like a whole studio set up and like they're recording all of these beats and it's, a mega production happening right now. And I think, yeah, just, in the past 30 years, like digital to analog converters, manufacturing costs have all gone down. Interest in digital music has gone up as you need to stream, YouTube channels, podcasts, gaming microphones, for like talking to people while you're gaming. There's all these other pushes that affect the audio industry,
Mm-hmm.
as well. It's like from when I first got my first interface and it was like, saving up for months and months and months. And it's probably not as good quality as the one you can get for $90 now. I was like, microphones have not, there hasn't been as much change in microphones. I think my favorite cheap microphone my first one was the MXL 990 for those interested. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the same price that it is now as it was then, which was about $100. So that's, yeah,
Yeah, it
15
definitely
years.
looks it definitely looks old school. And when I first started this, I had like an old Shure. It was like a 25-year-old like Shure. Not uh yeah, it just looked like a jukebox karaoke microphone. I'm drawing a blank on which one exactly it was,
Uh-huh.
but it was like $70, and it continues to be 70
Yeah.
bucks. Yeah, hardware is getting better, but it's just the same with computers. It's that prosumer side. If I'm going to throw a buzzword out there,
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
it's something more than just what a general consumer needs, but it's less than a professional. But it's somewhere between what not a professional, but they want something better than just the actual the common offerings. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, definitely seeing that in a lot of different fields, including things like webcams and things like that. And actually, let's go ahead and branch this out into, we've been touching on the social aspect of this, and anyone out there wants to go check this out. You offered featured artists, featured contests, which talk a little bit about channels, live streams, things like that. Here's what I really want to talk about is that when it comes to music, I said it way at the beginning. A lot of people are making music nowadays. It's very easy to get $200-300, get a decent setup, and start making something. The real problem though is I think getting out there, getting
Mhm.
not and I don't want to say that there's ever a moment where it's like you've been discovered and the American Idol fantasy where it's like one
Mhm.
moment you're a nobody, next moment everyone knows your name. uh there's a lot of brand building, there's
Yeah.
constant production of material and that kind of thing. How do you tackle, I'm assuming your platform does tackle this idea of discoverability where someone with 0 followers could potentially be introduced to at least a handful, obviously, it has to be good enough for people to listen to, but when people start producing things, how do you get this idea that, hey, let's start introducing them to more and more people?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, we I guess there's many different ways that you can promote or get promoted on BandLab.
Hmm.
And obviously, I mean, community is number one for us. So, we'll suggest users based on your interest to follow, standard stuff like that. But we also have all these sub communities and bands. You can make a band in BandLab with, so like, 30
Makes sense.
people like collaborating, like everybody taking different verses, right? And so, yeah, the collaboration feeds the community, and the community, like I want to think of it as like an ecosystem. So like we help promote you, but you also have to do the footwork, because you're an independent artist and you want to promote yourself. So releasing albums is a good idea. We offer link services, like so you could post one link in Instagram and it can go to all of your different projects in BandLab. We have a tip jar, so like if somebody wants to buy a beat from you, they can tip you for it. And we're introducing new features like post insights, where you can start to see like the impressions and where most effective the tracks that you make are posted on other platforms. And you know these are like really important tools that even like big publishers or like labels and extra expensive cloud hosting services might offer. And we
Yeah.
just it's like independent artists, like you have to be your business manager, and you have to be your promoter and your marketer and your the producer. And it's nobody has time to do all of that. And so we need to we're trying to help.
But yeah, and I can definitely see that. That's just like every other thing that we've talked about so far. It's not about kind of throwing you into the deep end and saying, "Hey, figure
Yeah,
it out." It's about, "Hey, here are some numbers that could definitely help you." Try to learn about impressions and that kind of thing, and what that means and what that can do for you, and what works and what doesn't. Uh,
exactly.
yeah, and of course, being able to organize your community with things like things like hashtags and channels and
Yeah.
similar artists and things like that, I'm sure helps a lot as well.
And we have like playlists is a great one, like getting on these curated playlists, or it's creating your own playlists. There's so many different ways to sort of
Well,
promote yourself on the
and
platform. Yeah.
hey, and one of the most obvious talked about things, I assume, from artists, is
Hmm.
this idea that, let's say you upload a song, you upload a track, a beat, whatever. Um, how legally, how does this work with artists and BandLab?
Yeah, that's it's super important to understand those boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at our terms of service, we keep it very basic, because otherwise well, there's lots of
Yeah,
terms, but I
yeah.
can explain it in one thing. Is that when you upload something to BandLab, like we're trusting that you actually own it, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
can't, like, that's standard for a lot of media sites. When you collaborate with people in BandLab, so if you do it in a band, or you invite somebody individually to collaborate on a project, or X, Y, and Z, it's treated like an in-person relationship. So if you go and have a jam with your friend and you write a song together, that's basically the same. You can think of it, working in BandLab as exactly the same way. So you have to decide among yourselves what license, what the ownership is. And like,
Mm-hmm.
we just can't get involved in that, in those small collaborations. For forking a track, which is where you can, say I made a beat, it's got 10 tracks, I just released an album, I want one of those tracks to be like remixable for everybody. You're putting those samples basically into the public domain, so that people can like reuse those loops in another track. But again, that's like an opt-in thing, and
Yeah.
it's really powerful for you know the monetization of samples and content in this way. This is also a changing landscape, and sometimes it can be more effective to have people interact with your content directly than it is just to sort of like monetize it in this smaller scale.
Yeah, and I know that it's joked about all the time that you're doing this for for exposure and things like that. But I
Hmm.
think that if you have hundreds or thousands of people who are following your account and trying to see what it is that you put out, then that may
Yeah,
be as profitable as trying to sell 15, 20 tracks at once.
exactly. And I'm just as an aside, I'm like constantly excited by how many plays my tracks get on BandLab. Like
Mhm.
I make stuff all the time in the app. I'm testing it. I'm like working with the samples and the loops and the sound team. And like, some stuff it's like, oh, like last year you had 60,000 plays on this track or some, and I'm just like, I just let them hang there. And there's like people, things get discovered. You start to follow people, request to collaborate. And it just sort of, yeah, when everything is in balance, everything builds from that. And it's really exciting.
Yeah, and again, go on YouTube, go to, let's say, the Beatles, and any random song that's uploaded from the Beatles, and check out the comments section. There's probably some 12-year-old going, "Wow, I never heard about the Beatles. These guys are great." Discoverability doesn't just happen the moment that you do it, but kind of
Exactly. Yeah.
there's a long tail to this whole thing.
It's
So
continuously evolving.
absolutely, and very good to hear that, kind of from a legal standpoint, I guess these artists, it gets a little more murky when they work with other people. But as
Yeah.
far as the artist's relationship to BandLab, I'm sure that you agree that, like you said, you didn't just rip off the latest Eminem track. It's
Yeah.
this is yours.
Well, most importantly, I also like we don't own the music that people are making on BandLab.
That's what I was
Like,
looking
like
for.
that's the
Perfect.
that's the most important thing. It's not we're not like actually, uh, that's the
So if
most a
someone,
core
yeah,
ideal. Yeah, if you uploaded your track and like you master it, or say you even take all of our loops and like make your own sound from it, and it's all just BandLab samples. Like we give you 100% commercial license to use any of the samples however you want to. Like
that's what I was
it's
looking for, because
yeah,
I would really hate to run into a situation where it's like you upload it, you master it using BandLab, and then let's say you get it up on Pandora, and Pandora gets a takedown order because it's up on BandLab, and copyright claim and all that good stuff. So that's perfect, just what I wanted to hear. So the big thing that's happening in the world, turn on any news station, we're having a pandemic right now. It's horrible.
hmm
People are having to not get together, in large and small social gatherings. So a couple of things here. First off, musicians, they can't play their music, for audiences in person anymore. So I'm sure that a lot of people who maybe didn't have that much interest in an online music, kind of thing, although I can't imagine why they wouldn't before, but they definitely do want to have some kind of online presence now where they can produce
hmm
music and share with people. The other part is a collaboration. You can't, get together with your band and, kind of play together. How would you say this, or how would you say that, and don't give me strict analytics, but BandLab's activity over the past couple of months, has it seen any kind of bump where, you're seeing this is reflected?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are more interested in like moving their collaborations on, like community is so important, and like and in many ways, like in this crisis, like our communities get more distant naturally because we can't be there in person. And so we've definitely seen BandLab people on BandLab using this to sort of keep in touch with their community and their bandmates or collaborators. We also have a lot of people coming to the platform because um, it's fun to make music and it feels good, and it's at home activity, and it's like the perfect time, I think, to just like it's like, well, like express yourself, and like process through these things and like move forward. And so we're definitely seeing um some growth like in this period as people are generally staying home.
Yep, and to that extent, I'm sure that for people who just want to get better in general, and I just pulled up here real quick. It's something that BandLab seems to be putting on, 30-day
Yeah.
creative challenge, and really, there's a lot of great information and education on your blog in general. This is something that we just wanted to mention, where yeah, every single day, it's not like day one make a song, day two make a song. No, you've looks like BandLab has broken it down into things that maybe instead of the daunting task of making a song, maybe it's like day one, create a beat with a looper, which is pretty, fundamental to music. Day two,
Hmm.
create a beat with the creator kit, things like that. So I would say between this and the blog, there's a lot more than just strictly that. There's good information on BandLab as well, right?
Hmm. Yeah, there's information. We have, yeah, in the help blog, we have tons of how-tos. And YouTube, people are making community how-tos. It's, ask questions on Reddit, and then, access the help in app. The other thing I wanted to mention about, which you have it up on the screen right now, is BandLab for Education.
Hmm.
And, that's part of where we're seeing right now is we offer, a lot of these collaborative tools to educators for free so they can do things like, practice your flute with these MIDI instruments, or make a podcast in history class. There's a lot of really creative ways to use BandLab in the classroom, and we wanted to garden wall that so that take out all the social stuff, and make it for classrooms. And so a lot of my friends who are music educators are now using BandLab for Education, as they're teaching from home. And so for people who are teaching music, maybe, or know somebody teaching music, I would definitely check it out. It's free. You can sign up your school, and it works with Google Classroom. So yeah, it's a great way to keep making music with students, which is slightly different.
It's this service is very very fleshed out. I know that you say that you're still treating yourself as a startup, but you have a lot of things going on. You have a lot of different sides to this, and of course all very important. I know that in the past couple of years, a lot of people have questioned the importance of music in the classroom or in schools and general education. And hey, one of the reasons is always funding. There's not enough funding, so I'm very happy that you made that for free for educators.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, to foster a community of creators, you have to have some music education. It's it's kind of fundamental. Yeah.
Absolutely, and of course, with and hey, let's face it, you're also making sure that you have another generation of users on your
Yeah,
platform. So
exactly.
it's totally greedy, but no, it's definitely a good thing. Talk about the community that you have. Obviously, a big part of this is the collaboration, but also the sharing, listening, live streaming that you're doing as well. How many people are uploading music, and how many people are sharing, listening, that kind of thing? Again, not strict numbers, but would you say that this is something that's catching on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our numbers are, I mean, people are really using the app. I think the best way to see it is just to join the app. I
Hmm.
know it's not like, maybe that's the best way to see, it's like, you'll immediately start to get engagement from users. You'll see how it works. You can post your first track. Yeah. And there's just a ton of people like doing all, because you can upload to BandLab, you can sync it with your DAW of choice, or you can create things in it. There's so many different ways for musicians to interface it with, what's actually only relevant to them. That's part of why I think it's growing so rapidly right now.
So, and by the way, I know that you said that there was a tip jar, and that has actually
Hmm.
been a great way that we've seen other services help people who, maybe if you do the spare time, but you want to be encouraged by it. Hey, people are going to drop you a couple bucks, and it'll be good.
Exactly.
Selling tracks strictly on the platform, is everything free? Like, let's say someone downloads
Hmm.
the app and they get started, and they're not creators, they're just listening to new things that they can't hear anywhere else. Are there artists that have, like, oh, you can only listen to my stuff if you pay $2 or something like that? Like, are there any price points that artists can do by themselves?
Yeah. So when you create or post a track in BandLab, it really is free for public consumption by people on the app, right? So, but that's like, I'm publishing it and making it public.
Right.
The We have an albums feature that has just been released, so that's a way that, if you want to create a collection, like an album basically of some of your projects, you can package that and you know charge what you want for it. Basically, we just give, it could be free, it could be whatever it could be built of BandLab projects, you know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
just a way to, it's, you know, it's really a way to, your fans can just like give you money for the work that you're doing, which is, you know,
But again, that's completely up to the individual artist
it's,
on how
yeah,
to
it's up
handle
to the
that.
artist, and we don't actually take a share of that either. So this is a new feature, by the way. If you go to BandLab, where you can't make albums right now where you charge for them, but this is like where this feature is going.
I
So
gotcha.
and that's one way that we really want to promote yeah, artists to
Well,
release their
and
tracks.
and really, if someone's been working on an album for 10 months and this is something that they want to monetize, they don't want to just completely ditch their community that they've built when they were, let's say, making the album, and just say, oh, well, it's only available on this, and this platform because there is no way to charge for it here. So
Yeah,
it does
exactly.
make sense that, the sum culmination of a person's efforts, you should have a way to publish it on BandLab.
Yes, totally.
That part I completely understand. So looking through some of these other ones, we mentioned the whole BandLab for free for educators.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the future. Obviously, users are increasing.
Mhm.
The demands. You said earlier that there are naysayers that say, well, why can't you do X, Y, Z? I'm sure that you don't just blow them off and say, hey, go away, go somewhere else. You're saying, we'll work on that, later. So when it comes to development of this project and, what it is that you see coming in the future, is it about refining what it is? Is it about, you mentioned growing your user base, of course,
Mhm.
but how do you see BandLab evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think you're you're right on track with, if we separate, BandLab into the social side of things and the mix editor, the creation side of things. I work on the mix editor, the creation tools, and there are so many tools in the mix editor right now, that from voice correction to changing effects, hundreds of different presets, hundreds of sound banks. We're working on ways that you can customize things to finer and finer detail. We're interested in letting users build their own instruments in the app. So, but really for me, it's about like streamlining that user experience, because I want, when you're making music in BandLab, to be like a flow state. I don't want it to be like, here's this set of features. It's here's what it feels like to make music in BandLab on the phone. So everything is in an intuitive place and everything moves quickly, and there's a language that you learn. And that's what we're, working on right now. And that could be everything ranging from like performance improvements on web to new gesture based actions when you're editing audio. We're experimenting things with spectral denoising, so removing the background noise when you sing into your phone. We just released BPM and key detection when you import tracks on iOS. So if we know what key or BPM it's in and you're importing a track, you can start to play with our loops and we'll sync them up so everything sounds good. Yeah, these are the types of, we have a lot of major feature sets, and now it's about really like dialing it in and making it so people can, yeah, really express themselves with it.
And this is probably completely wrong, but and those all sound like something that you can do with the more data, of course, artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
machine learning, blah blah blah. Hey, let's face it, you do want your beats per minute to match when you're producing a song.
Yes, totally.
To excluding everything, let's say you have 120 beats per minute, you exclude everything that has 100 to 180 because it just wouldn't sound right. That's great, but this is kind of a personal question, and you've been working in the space, you make music. Tools like that, do you think over time it's going to be harder for, I'm not going to say like people to be creative, but if everyone's given the same narrow lane to follow, do you think
Mhm.
things start to sound homogenous?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, like, I don't know if they sound homogenous, but I think that it's a big question, and that's where we have to frame everything in this perspective of where you are in your musical journey.
Mm.
Because when you handle things implicitly, it's for somebody who is starting their journey and wants to create, and it's this fun thing that they can do. And when you get into, I am a creator and I'm publishing multiple tracks a day or a week, right? You need those extra tools, and you don't want that to happen, right? So these are things that, you should be able to opt in or out of, or, a specific set of audio you can, on our web client, you can change the transposition, right? So you're not limited in any way to, we kind of have a preset, right? We set it up and it's like, this is the way you want to do it, but you can opt out and you can change all of the settings that we're kind of implicitly changing. And that's, yeah, like I said, that's super important. And we want, at the end of the day, we want people to start uploading their samples, for other users to use, not just like tracks, but like snare drums and drum hits and like samples they made while they were beatboxing, and like have other people make tracks with them on a more granular level. So that's
Right.
it's like we want the community to actually feed how this is happening, not from a sound perspective versus like, yeah, it's a big question, like homogenizing creative processes, just like using data collection algorithms. Like, yeah, that's something that we don't want to do.
Right. And of course, we've been saying that there's, thousands or tens of thousands of different sound bites that people can use. And that number continues to grow and change. And of course, hey, music continues to be music. It evolves. So wow, this interview was supposed to be about 30 minutes, but it lasted an hour. And I want to thank you so much for joining us. And, John, you've been amazing. This was a great interview. I'll leave you with the last word, though. If people want to find out more, where's the best place they can get more information?
Yeah, just go to bandlab.com, and whatever device you can access the app, check it out. Try making a track. Yeah. I'm just, follow me at Johnny Bears, JOHNIBEARS. Send me a message. I would love to hear like if anybody got on the app and made a track, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And hey, we'll go ahead and throw that in the show notes as well. And I want to thank you so much
Perfect.
for for kind of working for working with us, getting this out there, and really this service. I know that I've said it before, but there's a lot going on here, and I think people of all different skill levels would really enjoy this. So everyone, please go check it out. And again, computeramerica.com will have it up there as well. So John, until next time, I want to thank you so much. And hey, maybe in 6 months later in the year, we'll get you back on, and
Yeah.
hey, we'll get an update.
Thanks for having me. I'm super grateful to be here. Thank you.
Our pleasure, and we hope you had fun because we sure did. So,
Oh, I
everyone,
did.
yeah, and everyone, again, BandLab, BandLab.com. Check it out. So, John, until next time, have a great one. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap this up with computer and technology news. We have time for like one story, and then we'll go ahead and, take it from there. So, everyone, once again, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. So everyone, the only story that we have time for, and I think I'm going to go ahead and, kind of do this one, is that it's, hey, taking a broad stroke here, it's about Apple. It's about Apple and the future of Apple, and Apple has seen so much kind of backlash for what they do with when it comes to their manufacturing. Obviously, there are deals with Foxconn, and by the way, I don't mean to pick on Apple in particular. That's just what this it's just what this article, kind of mentions. Although I got to say that Apple in particular, they're one of the biggest clients for Foxconn. Tons of companies actually use Foxconn to to produce their goods for everyone. So, but check this out. Apple reportedly is seeking to move significantly more production from China to India. That's right. Who knew? Taking your production from a country of 1.1 billion people to a country of 1.3 billion people. Hey, put people to work. They said that a company must manufacture. Let's see. They have a quote here from the Indian Economic Times saying several meetings between Apple's senior executive and top-ranking government officials over the last few months have paved the way for iPhone maker examining and possibly of shifting nearly a fifth of its production capacity from China to India. Check that out. That's a lot. And they said that scaling up its local manufacturing revenues, though its contract manufacturers, through its contract manufacturers to around $40 billion over the next 5 years, say officials. So obviously currently sells about 1.5 billion phones in India, but less than $0.5 billion of that are produced locally or, manufactured locally. Long story short, this is to say that I think India is going to give them just the biggest sweetheart deal that they can, and Apple has no qualms ditching China if they can get a better workforce, cheaper workforce for everything. So there you go, everyone. That's about all the time we have. Thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. We'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Bye, everyone.